Hello, my name is Emily Ortega, and in this opportunity, I'm going to talk about the vocal organs. Let's start with the larynx. Well, the larynx is also called the voice box, located in the neck. It contains the vocal cords, which vibrate to produce sound, control voicing for speech. Okay, the pharynx. A muscular tube behind the nose and mouth connects to the larynx, shapes sound resonance, and guides airflow for speech. The tongue. You already know the tongue, the flexible muscular organ, major articulator for vowels, primary articulator for consonants, and tertional shaping to create various constructions and fricatation patterns. The vocal cords, or vocal folds, two bands of tissue inside the larynx, that vibrate to produce voice sounds and control pitch and volume. Lungs. The lungs are two and are organs that push air to create the airflow needed for speech. And then they provide the energy that powers vocal sounds. Then the trachea, which is here, the trachea, the air passage from the lungs to the larynx includes the trachea and lungs, provides the air stream used for sound production. The diaphragm. The diaphragm, a dome-shaped muscle below the lungs that pushes air out to create the airflow needed for speech. Right. In this part, before we continue, let's clarify this. Articulators are the specific parts inside the vocal tract that touch or more to shape sounds, right? And the vocal tract is the whole passage from the lungs up to the lips and nose that shapes speech sounds, right? Includes we saw before, the larynx, pharynx, oral cavity, nasal cavity, tongue, lips, tips, palate, velum. And then, if we have to define vocal tract, the whole pathway, and articulators, the parts that actually modify the sound. And then let's start with the soft palate, that also called velum, the movable door at the back of the oral cavity that can close off the nasal cavity. Primary rows are nasal port control, raises the blood nasal airflow for oral sounds, lowers for nasal sounds, etc. Okay. Velarization. The velum and airflow control. The velum is the soft part at the back of the roof of the mouth. Its main function in speech is to direct the airflow coming from the lungs by either raising or lowering velum raised. Other part, velum raised. Loose position moves up and presses against the back wall of the larynx. This closes off the nasal cavity. Air can only escape through the oral cavity, and the result is that oral sounds like p, v, d, etc. Uvula. The uvula, the small fleshy extension at the back of the soft palate, helps shape sounds and control airflow. Here is the uvula. Hard palate. The hard palate is the bony part of the roof of the mouth. Primary rows, contact surface, provides points of articulations for several consonants. Example, palatal sounds like t, d. And here is the hard palatal. Alveolar ridge, the bony ridge just behind the upper from the tips. If you see here, the alveolar ridge. T, the upper and lower dental structures, primary rows, contact and constrictions for dental sounds like t and d. Lips, lower lip, upper lip. The mutable fleshy folds at the entrance of the mouth, primary rows, labial constrictions, creates bilabial sounds and labiodental sounds. Labial articulation also contributes to rounding and lip tension for vowel quality. We already mentioned the tongue before, and now we continue with the glottis as a reference point. Is the space between the vocal folds and the larynx. When we classify vowel organs, we often use the glottis as a dividing line, supraglotta, everything above the glottis, and infraglotta, everything below the glottis. Let's clarify. When we talk about the supraglotta vocal organs, these are the speech organs located above the vocal organs: oral cavity, tongue, lip, blade, front, etc., lips, tips, alveolar ridge, hard palatal, soft palatal, balloon, and uvula. Nasal cavity, when balloon is lowered, balloon, air flows through the nose, nasal sounds is the result. Balloon raised, air blood from the nose only flows through the mouth, and oral sounds is the result. And the infraglotta organs these organs are below the glottis. Airflow generation and pressure control includes trachea, the lungs. Their function is provide the airstream mechanisms that power speech. And the epiglottis, a leaf shaped flat behind the tongue and larynx, and primary rows in some languages or phonation types can influence airflow and contribute to certain articulations, but not a primary articulators in a standard speech. Okay. And then we have the articulators. We divide into two parts, active and passive. Why active? Well, the actives are the mutable and the passive are stationary, can't move, right? Active, tongue, lips, the soft palate. Passive, tip, alveolar ridge, hard palate, uvula. In this photo, I got the active one that are in green and the passive one. Okay. And then, human voice and speech. Let me explain you how the human voice and speech are created. Well, let's start with the voice. Sound produced by lungs and vocal folds in the larynx. Unique for each person as your fingerprint. Voice and speech are in the same. Example of voice can be crying, laughing, or touching, right? Speech, voice shaped into words to communicate meaning. For example, when you say, "Hi, how are you?" Or when you're telling an story, right? How do we breathe? Inhale, the diaphragm contracts, lips lift, and the rib cage, lungs fill with air, right? And exhale, the diaphragm relax, air lift lungs, removes carbon dioxide, and that's how do we breathe. Inhale and exhale. What are the organs that do this? The lungs, the rib cage, the diaphragm, right? How is voice produced? Air moves from the lungs, trachea, and larynx. Vocal folds vibrate as air passes sounds excrete. The glottis, remember the glottis is the space between the vocal cords, opens for breathing and narrows for speaking. Open for breathing and narrows for speaking. How is speech produced? Muscles of head, throat, chest, mouth, nose, abdomen, all the vocal organs, articulators that we mentioned work together to do this. And then after articulator, move tongue, lips, balloon, the passive provisor face, teeth, alveolar ridge, hard palate, upper lip, and that's how we made voice or speech.